Hello and welcome to Pluribus Fireside Chats. Not as if yours, but hey, it's something. Now, the wait is almost over. This week is when we finally get the return of Pluribus Unum main series videos. Just in time for Valentine's Day, to show how much I love you all. May or may not premiere it, probably not. I don't know, you guys can let me know if you want it to be premiered. If not, I don't know. That's just kind of whatever you want to do. But I just wanted to. It's coming up. Just I'm happy with this, how this video is like turning out at the very least. Black History Month, copyright related, a very interesting combination. Sadly, I'll never be able to get to do it for like. Sadly, I wasn't able to get any Black History related topics for the podcast this month. But it is what it is. And hopefully the next Black History Month video will be way more interesting than that one. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First news story, apparently massive upset in Costa Rica. Laura Fernández won the election, clearing the vote total needed to just not move on to a second round. She received 48.3% of the vote, which is like a little over 1 million votes, with their closest runner-up, Alvaro Ramos Chavez of the PLN, getting 33.44% of the vote. And in the chambers, her party did pretty well. I guess I can't really be surprised that much. I guess they just were, I guess people just were a fan of what Rodrigo Chavez did in his administration for them to want to continue what his administration is doing. Could also be divide in the opposition, but even if I'm not saying that it was like a spoiled election. No, I'm just saying that generally there was no like mainstream opposition that I guess I'll just say it. Let's see. The top three. The top four candidates, as was basically all universally accepted, was Fernández, Alvaro Ramos, Claudia Dobles, and Ariel Robles. Robles would have probably been the only person who could have possibly given Laura Fernández a run for her money, because Alvaro Ramos and Claudia Dobles both come from political establishment, not necessarily establishment, but political movements that have already had control of the country. And it's sort of that situation where it's if you have, I guess I can't really say that because Laura Fernández is continuing what her current administration is doing, so it's I guess there's just not much to say on that regard. It's just a bit of a surprising result. There was an Al Jazeera thing that said, I watched an Al Jazeera news thing of the day of the election, and it was just a brief thing where they said there's two things about it. One, the turnout in this one was up 9.1 percentage points from the last election, but I haven't gotten the full ins and outs about this yet. But the thing is, some people say, or at least the Al Jazeera reports indicated that there was a possibility that certain voting populations would not really want to participate in this election. The biggest one being young people, the ones who were probably the biggest voting bloc for the left, I would assume. A similar situation, I guess, with Bernardo Arevalo, but that's not really here nor there, so let's just move on to the next story. This is a news story coming from the British Medical Journal, which is coming in the wake of the Olympics that are going on right now. And this is regarding trans athletes. Because if you remember, in the 2024 Olympics, there was a big controversy when Algeria's Imaine Khalif won the women's welterweight boxing gold medal, despite being disqualified for reportedly failing a gender eligibility test. Basically, here's the full, I guess it's not the full internet, but a summary is basically, Imaine Khalif is an Algerian boxer, and she's a woman. She's born a woman. She's, in every sense of the word, she's biologically a woman. And then what happened is, after she beat a Russian boxer then claimed, hey, Iman Khalif is a man, a transgender. They're transgender. Like, basically, they made the claim that they were transgender. And basically what happened was, it was determined that there was, like, one specific test that wasn't, like, a required test at the time. Like, basically, they did, like, a standard test to verify, if Iman Khalif was born biologically male. That was this is the thing, because the whole, like, transgender people in sports debate is always stupid, because, like, almost every single one of these institutions already had rules in place for this situation. One of the big things is, I would assume that they would do a big background check on the person that is entering the sports competition. They do sports, they do, they do a background check, they do medical records, they do all this sort of stuff prior, and all of them concluded Iman Khalif was born a woman, born in every sense of the word, in every sense of the word, biologically a woman. That's as that term as exists. Like, in the sense that they all the TERFs and the transphobes say, Iman Khalif is biologically a woman. The one thing that was, like, a question was, there was a specific test to determine the amount of testosterone in Iman Khalif, and Iman Khalif did not take that test, because that test was not required by the Olympics to be done. And the reason why that is not done for the test is because a multitude, one of the big ones is just the fact that is not a determining factor in if you are biologically a man or a woman. Like, they literally do, like, actual other things that, like, actually more definitively verify whether or not you were born biologically a male, quote unquote, or not. And Iman Khalif it says, like, they have high testosterone. Like, it is not due to any semblance of, like, them being biologically a man or whatever. It's the fact that Iman Khalif just has a naturally high testosterone. And that's just a thing. Like, you guys know that this stuff can happen, right? Like, you guys know, this is the thing. Like, it seems like people really do not understand the concept of, like, just what gender and sex are, because it's just, like, they seem to think that this is, like, a deal breaker, because, like, Iman Khalif has testosterone in her body, like every single woman does. Every single woman has testosterone in their body. Testosterone is produced by women too. It's just, in a broader sense, it's usually less than estrogen. But of course, due to the fact that humans are such a vast biological creature, there are, of course, many different variations of it. There's, like, obviously, like, chromosomal differences and stuff, but then there's also just, like, general things. Like, like, a man can have somewhat high levels of estrogen, or, just, like, other things, like, one big thing is, like, men are supposed to have hair. A lot of men don't have hair. And then they take substances to give themselves hair because because they're biologically not haired as much as they should be. I guess if you're, you get what I'm saying. Anyways, the story is that this study concludes that transgender athletes have no advantage over women. Like, trans women have no advantage over. And this is the thing. Like, these studies have existed for a long time. Like, literally. And this is the weird thing, because, like, conservatives will also just, like, use the ones that prove them wrong as a way to prove them right. Because I remember, like, getting into a debate with some fucking loser, and they were saying, like, women have, like, this study from the Olympics shows that, and it's like, but you linked to this study. I literally just linked that exact same study, and it shows that literally in many sporting events, women, like there is no, because it's just based on, like, a basic baby understanding of, like, men are stronger than women, ergo blah 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 blah. That's literally all it is. And they don't understand the concept of, there are biological women that are stronger than a lot of men. Like, this almost on a sense. Iman Khalif, basically a lot of these, like, guys who, like, shit on Iman Khalif and, like, call her, like, a man or whatever, like, literally, I guarantee you she could beat up, like, basically every single person who says it. But yeah, there's not much else for me to say, because they're just like, wow, study that shows thing that has been proven right once more is proven right once more. And yet again, people are not going to believe that, and they're just going to move forward and just whatever. But anyways, let's move on to the next story, which is the recent New Jersey House election that just happened. So, for those who don't know, Mikey Shirelli, who became the governor of New Jersey, she left a House seat open, so now they have to replace her with a new member of Congress. And apparently, this race got a little bit more heated than people might have initially expected. One of the big things that happened was it was a race where, like, a former member of Congress, Tom Malinowski, recently lost his House seat, so then he decided to run for the seat. He was like a somewhat like center-left member of Congress. Like, I mean, I read some things where he was technically one of the progressives in New Jersey. Technically. I say technically. It's similar vein to how technically Alma Adams is considered a progressive down here in North Carolina because she's a member of the Progressive Caucus. But otherwise, I mean, their fare is basically just like slightly to the left of like a normie Democrat, and that's basically Tom's like ideology. And one of the interesting things that came out of that was the fact that he was a old school style of Democrat in regards to Israel. Like, I mean, you know, of course he supported Israel, you know, all that kind of stuff. But he also was slightly critical of Benjamin Netanyahu. He didn't call what was happening in Palestine a genocide, but he did go like, Benjamin Netanyahu might be going a little bit too far. And due to that fact, AIPAC got involved in this race and spent a shit ton of money against Malinowski, in a similar vein to how they did with Harry Dunn and David Min and a couple of other members of people, a couple of people who ran for Congress. Even though they were in favor of Israel and like pro-Israel, they just weren't pro-Israel enough. And, you know, in the same vein of AIPAC, how they always do these things, they never spend money on the Israel issue. They always spend money on everything else. And, shock of all shocks, one of the big things that they kept doing was they kept attacking Tom Malinowski for his pro-Trump record, because he was a swing seat Democrat, so he did vote with Donald Trump on a couple of issues. And in a very ironic twist, the more pro-Israel candidates, like, I mean, Brendan Gill, I think, was like their main guy. Like, he was the guy who was kind of seen as like the most pro-Israel candidate in the race. He was actually running as like I'm a anti-Trump guy. That was one of his big things, you know, like fuck ICE, that kind of stuff. I think I could be misremembering it, but I'm pretty sure like that was one of the main things they were trying to do. Like, these guys, you know, he's not the real Democrat. They weren't like trying to get them to back. I mean, I guess technically in an obscure sense they were, but like it was just like it wasn't like actually meant to be like explicitly like these guys are better, this guy sucks. It was just more like, you know, this guy sucks, and then it would instinctively make people go, oh, so other candidates might be better. Except there was one big problem. They didn't seem to factor in the fact that there was a pro-Palestine progressive candidate in the race, Analilia Mejia, who got the endorsement of like a ton of like, I think she got the endorsement of the Progressive Caucus, I think, but she got endorsement from a lot of like prominent members of the Progressive Caucus, you know, like Chewy Garcia, AOC, Bernie, that kind of stuff, like, because she got the endorsement of the Working Families Party. And another element of this race that also became interesting was like this was like also another thing about the Chicago machine. I mean, not Chicago, New Jersey machine. Because if you don't remember, New Jersey, like a lot of blue areas in the country, or like just areas in general in the country in regards to politics, there's, you know, machine politics. And Tom Malinowski does represent a particular wing of machine politics. And Brendan Gill also represented another faction of machine politics. And that was one of the big things that was also a big factor, because Mejia was like, I don't represent any of them. And as of the day I'm recording this, Mejia is currently statistically tied with Malinowski, but she has the slight edge. And like, this was a funny thing that happened, because what happened was everybody, like most, like there are a few people that called it early for Malinowski, but then very quickly it was like a really dumb decision, because Mejia almost immediately like beat him after that was called. And then she even ended up posting the funny haha meme of like, you know, Dewey beats Truman, and, you know, it wasn't true. And it seems that, like, I mean, it's technically still not called as of the time I'm recording this, but from what I'm seeing, a lot of people are saying that it probably will end up, like, because every single drop has basically just been pro-Mejia, and the last votes that have yet to be counted are the mail-in ballots, which are apparently just more likely to go to Mejia. So AIPAC literally accidentally fucked themselves bad, and they literally, because I had to do research on Mejia, and it's like, yeah, she was like one of the few candidates, she was the only candidate, I think, at the time to openly say, like, yeah, what's happening in Palestine is genocide, this is fucking stupid. And one of the things that happened was that they tried to save face, like, they tried to save face by posting this. So it's like, the outcome of in New Jersey 11 was an anticipated possibility, and our focus remains on who will serve the next full term in Congress. UDP will be closely monitoring dozens of primary races, including the June New Jersey 11 primary, to help ensure pro-Israel candidates are elected to Congress. With a somewhat insinuation being that, I think one of the things, I read a news article that was kind of like building up to it, where it was like basically saying, like, it seemed like what they were trying to do was they were again trying to like build up support for Brendan Gill, one of the more pro-Israel candidate in the race. But this is the worst part. Because it seems like the idea is like, oh, with Melanot, because basically what was happening is that a lot of people kind of like, because, this is a special election. There's like a normally scheduled election coming up later. So the question is like, what happens now? So basically what has happened is most of the candidates have basically said, like, if I don't, like, basically what has happened is that there's like a few candidates have said, like, if I win the upcoming election, I will, everyone who said that they win, they're going to run for the full term. But there are a couple of candidates who have said, like, if I don't win, I'm probably not going to run. And what has happened is Brendan Gill has immediately, after the primary results came in, announced that he's not going to run for the full term. So AIPAC might have fucked themselves even more by accidentally making it so that the one candidate they liked was actually not going to be in the race. Granted, there is actually technically one more candidate who is in the race that is at least somewhat pro-Israel that is probably still going to remain running in the race. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But anyways, now let's move on to some local news. Let's talk about some North Carolina news. This first one is just a funny news story that really, again, to me, shows like the massive hypocrisy of MAGA and all those other reactionary Republican types. And it's the fact that the North Carolina Senate race has actually gotten a little bit interesting because of one thing that has happened. So one of the candidates running for the Republican nomination for North Carolina Senator is a candidate by the name of Margot Dupree. She has absolutely no chance of winning, but she basically got any single slight favorability possible chance of winning removed from her because it was revealed that, because here's what happened, because this is a thing that a lot of Republican candidates seem to have this very interesting development where they don't live in any of the areas they're running in. The same thing happened with that insane fucking candidate in Texas, where she got removed from she can't vote in her own area anymore because they're like, you don't live here. You don't live here. And this is what happened. They checked Dupree's address of her candidate filing papers and they're like, hold on a second. This is a UPS store. And then they're like, hey, is this where you live? And she's like, well, I've actually been living in my car as I drive around to campaign for Senate in North Carolina. But then they also checked, and they're like, that's weird. This car that you say you're living in is currently in Florida at your husband's house, and it's registered in Florida. Your driver's license is in Florida. Everything in your life is Florida. So why are you running for candidate here? And she had to simply provide any proof that she lived in North Carolina, but she could not. And as such, she will not, she is on the ballot, but this is the most embarrassing thing. She is on the ballot. She is on the ballot. But she will not be allowed to have her votes counted. Literally, it's not even that their votes are going to get counted and then just dismissed. No, they're not going to count votes for her. And listen to this fucking smug ass cunt right here. Literally, this is her response. She's going to try and appeal this decision by stating, this is her reasoning. I am not here illegally. I am an American citizen. I have chosen North Carolina as my home. This is nothing. There's nothing illegal here. Yes, it is. If there was nothing illegal, they wouldn't kick you off the fucking board. You are literally breaking the law. You are a filthy non-North Carolinian. Get out of my state. You're not welcome here. Get the fuck out. Funny how sometimes the borders are imaginary and sometimes they're real. Interesting development. But yeah, I just find this one fucking funny because it's just like the smug entitledness out of this. And also, let's contrast it with another story coming from North Carolina, and it's the fact that the North Carolina Election Board has flagged hundreds of thousands of voters for potential disenfranchisement. North Carolina's GOP-controlled election board announced Tuesday it's sending letters to hundreds of thousands of voters whose registration were flagged in a database review, a move that puts them at risk of disenfranchisement. Letters are going out to more than 241,000 North Carolina voters whose driver's license numbers or partial social security numbers did not match when checked against government databases, according to the state board. This is just another way we are working to have the most accurate voter rolls in North Carolina history, Sam Hayes, the board's executive director, said. This effort does not affect the eligibility of any of those voters to cast ballots in our elections. This coincides with another thing called the Registration Repair Project, launched after the US DOJ sued North Carolina last year for allegedly failing to properly collect required identification information on voter registration forms. And this also they explain very simply, they also acknowledge that a lot of these discrepancies are very minor and really mean nothing, but they're still going to do it anyways. This is, of course, just one step in the multitude of many other things that they want to do to try and make sure that the selection is it's very obvious. The Republicans want to rig the election. They want to do it in either the small ways that they've always done in the past, or they want to do it in the massive ways. They want to make sure that people are disenfranchised so that literally everyone, and then they complain because they don't actually care. They don't actually care. They don't care at all. One of the things that is always brought up is but voter ID is actually a good thing because blah, 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 blah. And it's but then the responses are usually some of the very, almost exclusively similar things over and over and over again, where it's so every single form of identification counts? Because that's the thing. It's one, every single form of voter ID is different in every single state. Every single state has different things that count as voter ID. Some states count, gun licenses as voter ID. Some states count student IDs. Some say that one of those two are explicitly forbidden from being used as identification. The thing is, nobody would care if you had automatic voter registration the second they turn 18, which the government 100% can do, because I distinctly remember getting a letter in the mail around my 18th birthday being told that I was enlisted in the draft board. Meanwhile, they can't do that for me when I want to exert my constitutional rights to choose the government that I want to be ruled by. Or if you want to do this for people all over the board, literally, there's multiple things. One, you have to either that's for all the new voters, and then two, have it so that people are automatically given an ID. Because that's the thing, people are not automatically given an ID, and we have to allow multiple forms of ID to be used. This is the thing, because you want to do it in a very specific, restrictive way to discourage people from voting, particularly voters of color. That's what it is. People always act but you're implying black people are too stupid to get an ID? It's no, we're saying that they work too hard. They don't have time to lazily around to get an ID. I got a voter ID around the time I turned 18. I went to go get a North Carolina voter ID around the time that I registered to vote, because that was around the time where the voter ID law was going to be implemented in North Carolina, and the voter ID is a valid voter identification. But I was also a college person who was taking community college courses and didn't really have much else at the time to do, so I have the ability to. Most people don't have that ability. So if you're a North Carolina voter, make sure that you are able to be on the vote. I've been checking my voter identification. I've been checking my voter registration basically every day in the administration, or every week or so. And yep, I'm still active on the voter rolls. Ain't gonna take my rights no time soon. Well, speaking of taking away your rights, Donald Trump is basically also talking about possible changing of the elections, and one of the big things that he wants to do is that he wants to nationalize the elections. This coming after the heels of Tulsi Gabbard being around for the arrest warrant around Fulton County, Georgia, about possibly quote unquote alleged voter fraud in 2020, and of course the lead up to possible elections in 2026 and 2028. And I know that there are some of you who might not even necessarily know why this is a bad thing. So let me explain how the U.S. election scene works again, because some of you might not know. Okay, the way the elections because this is the thing about, like, it's the reason why the 2020 election was not rigged, because the 2020 election, like, U.S. elections, U.S. presidential elections are basically, to an extent, borderline impossible to rig, because elections in the United States are so decentralized. Like, yes, they are all, like, working together in, like, the broader presidential election, like presidential elections specifically, but then the process is broken down individually to 50 mini elections in each state, which is why each candidate has to file in every single state. But then that process within the state is also decentralized in the individual counties. So, like, literally it's literally like individual counties that have basically the complete control of the elections. And these processes have been part of the process for a long period of time. Like, I mean, naturally, the elections were decentralized very early on for the reasons that it was just difficult to, like, really centralize that kind of governance. But then the process of decentralization and, like, having each individual state kind of, like, hold power over its own elections became very pressing during one specific election. I think it was 1876, which it was Tilden versus Hayes, and, like, basically the problem was that there were two individual slates that, like, in certain states that concluded, like, my candidate won, no, my candidate won, and basically they wanted that the federal government to tell them what happened, and the federal government was like, oh wait, well, we don't really know what to do. So then they wrote a law that basically said, like, no, the states have to settle all of these election shenanigans before you even submit the like electors, essentially strengthening the power the states had over their own elections, which is why you got things in, like, this is why there were a lot of things in the past that were very bad, like the fact that in many southern states, Democrats essentially had what was called a white primary, where literally the only people who could vote were white people in the states, because they got to control how they ran their elections. It's also the same reason why in Electoral College there are a couple of states that award Electoral College, like, seats differently. Like Nebraska has that infamous one blue seat that that one elector that always gets sent that is, like, blue. And due to that fact, elections are very much not necessarily impossible, I guess, but, like, very improbable. It's very hard to rig the elections. Meanwhile, nationalizing the elections would very much obviously make it so that the national government has the ability to control how the elections are run and how the elections are done. And, of course, his excuse is that he wants to do it to, like, quote-unquote, get rid of corruption, but, like, what he's really doing is making it so that it's way easier for him to rig an election. Like, bro, the existing system's not perfect, but, like, the existing system is way better than what that alternative is. And it's also, again, very interesting and contradictory to Tulsi Gabbard's own belief system, which is why she literally does her name in reverse. There's a joke from Amazing Atheist that was always funny, haha. It's like, what's interesting? When you reverse Tulsi Gabbard's name, her name is I Slut. And that is what she is for Donald Trump and the MAGA movement now. Because all she does is now, like, she's given up so much of her own fucking principles. It's so fucking hilarious. But, yeah, I mean, what else is there to say? This is bad, obviously, and if this actually goes through, well, that's when things get bad, and even worse. But there's a lot of Republicans who are even also, like, critical of this movement, so I don't know if this is really the route that they're going to go. There is also, like, Steve Bannon also said that he wants to implement, like, put ICE out there so that ICE can deter people from voting, but, like, no, that's not going to deter people from voting. Like, bro, I've seen videos of people literally just, like, they're just tired and done, and they're willing to do anything at this point. We're not scared anymore. No one's scared anymore. And the next story is a funny story, could be depressing story, but also a very interesting one. It's depressing. It's everything. It's interesting, depressing, funny, and cringe. Kamala Harris. She has tried to rear her ugly head once more. She's announced that she's rebranding the Twitter account Kamala HQ into a new, quote-unquote, progressive institution. I think it's just, like, here's what happened. So they posted a video where, like, they're, like, changing their username, Like, we were trying to log in and it was like trying to say something like Project 2025 was real, all this kind of stuff, and like the last one was headquarters. And then they wanted to change their Twitter @ to headquarters. And the allegations are that they are going to, like, you know, the whole point is that she, like, you know, she's partnering up with a group called People for the American Way to create, quote, an online organizing project for the next generation of campaigning. And then you look at the board of the people who are of this organization that are apparently involved with this movement. You have Seth MacFarlane, who backed Pete Buttigieg. You have Alyssa Milano, who basically said, who cares about the allegations against Joe Biden after she led the Me Too movement. And it's just like, this doesn't sound like a very progressive organization. Interesting. Alec Baldwin is also involved with this organization. Interesting. I mean, I don't think it's really progressive to shoot your, like, co-stars, but, you know, I mean, maybe progressive has changed its tune, you know, I mean, you know, I guess maybe progressivism has changed its tune. But here's one thing that is very, it was very interesting for a multitude of reasons. And the thing was, like, when they wanted to, you know, like, get their new @ they wanted to give their @ headquarters. But they weren't allowed to have the @ headquarters. So what they decided to do instead was change their @ to @headquarters 67. For those who don't know, 67 is one of the new Gen Alpha memes where they do like a thing with their hand and say 67, 67, 67. I have Gen Alpha family members, so I adapted. I at least know of its existence. And yeah, it's like the first meme where a lot of the Gen Zers are finally realizing, shit, I'm old. But that's also another thing that's interesting. It's not a Gen Z meme. It's a Gen Alpha meme. Literally, it's a meme of a generation that can't vote. So I don't understand the point of doing it like as a funny haha. And then, here's what happened. They got so embarrassed because everyone kept clowning on them for that they changed their @ to 68. Like, headquarters 68. It's like, bro, you're not even gonna fucking own it? You're not even gonna fucking own doing the fucking 6-7 meme? You literally exactly proved that what they were clowning on you doing it for was 100% true. That you're just doing it because you, like, are desperate to reach a young group of people that are just never gonna vote for you. And I just gotta say this, like, I mean, the one obvious indication is that this is probably Kamala Harris hinting that she might run for president in 2028. And I mean, this is the most every sense of the being. If she runs, well, might as well non-advertiser friendly things ourselves. I'm just being real. Anybody who unironically thinks that Kamala Harris should be the nominee in the next election is stupid and just, no. You're the reason why the Dems failed, and you're the reason why the Dems will continue to fail. You guys are terrible. And this is the thing. Kamala Harris failed. Look at me. You can pretend all you want. You can all cry and piss and shit yourselves about, like, the various reasons. And one of the big things they try to do is, like, should say, well, Kamala Harris didn't have a exactly. Look, like, listen to this. One of the big things that a lot of, like, fucking K-Hive losers are desperately trying to do is try to be like, well, Kamala Harris didn't have the time to build an electoral base. Yeah, and whose fault is that? The fact that you all sat there and just said, like, yeah, Joe Biden should run for another term. That was your fucking fault. You guys did it. And literally, Kamala Harris literally had the entire red carpet rolled out for her. She didn't have to go through a primary process. She didn't have to go through any sort of... You guys literally rigged the election for her. And you still couldn't unite the party. Guys, she literally lost to a pedophile bought by another country who literally led a fucking plague that killed 400,000 Americans. She somehow couldn't beat that. Even after we basically neutered ourselves just so she could run basically unopposed. The fact that she still couldn't do that is a fucking failure on her part. And she should literally never be considered for any national office ever. I mean this in the most honest sense. And it doesn't even matter for, like, good candidates or bad candidates or whatever. If you lose on an objective level on that bad of a scale, then you really should never be considered for a national stage again. Like, I mean, look, George McGovern was pretty cool. I like George McGovern. But I can freely acknowledge and freely admit, yes, George McGovern should never have been even considered to possibly be a Democratic nominee in a future election. He ran for president again in 1984. It's like, why? You failed in a massive scale. Go away. You guys are the ones who put her in this situation that led her to fail. And this came after her basically tanking in 2020, despite the fact that everybody kept saying, like, oh, she's the next generation of the Democratic Party. She is not a good candidate. She's a terrible candidate. She's a failure of a candidate. And the fact that we even entertained the possibility of Kamala Harris running for president again, and instead of just pointing and laughing at her saying, haha, you're fucking loser, pathetic fucking loser, bitch. It's like, why? In before someone says, but Bernie lost twice. Intra-party primary. Different discussion than that. And yes, Kamala Harris lost an intra-party primary and a general election. She got to lose on both counts, showing she's a terrible candidate on both fronts. Think about it. Kamala Harris was so bad of a candidate that the only way she could have become the Democratic nominee is after someone ran in every single primary, then dropped out, and then cleared the field so that no one would even think of challenging her. That was the only way Kamala Harris could become the Democratic nominee. That's pathetic. And in literally both fronts, she was a terrible candidate because on one end, she was copying and pasting everything Bernie Sanders did, and then the next one, she was copying and pasting everything Biden did. She had no original thoughts of her own. She, again, was just copying whatever someone else did. And how in the hell can we ever trust her to have any semblance of a platform ever? Like, it doesn't matter what she says in the next election. The question is always going to be, are you going to be 2020 Kamala or are you going to be 2024 Kamala? Which one are you? And then she'll probably say some bullshit like, I'm 2028 Kamala. It's like, yeah, but which one is that? Is it going to be something completely different? Is now all of a sudden you're going to be like, build that wall? It's like, what is it? It's pathetic is what it is. But anyways, with that out of the way, let's move on to the main topic of this episode. It's going to be an interesting main topic, probably going to be somewhat of a unique one, because it's not really going to necessarily be, you'll see what it is when it is, but it's not what I wanted. Originally, I wanted to do a video where, because today is the birthday, like the day, as of the day the episode comes out, it is the birthday of the famous founding father, or not necessarily founding father, Thomas Paine. Like, I mean, he sometimes is counted as a founding father, but not really. And I wanted to give I wanted to read a couple of his books and, like, you know, give a couple of, like, you know, say, like, how cool he is, because, like, the thing is, he's, like, the most based founding father, apparently, and that's one of the main jokes that a lot of, like, lefties and socialists say. And I did buy Common Sense, and I was gonna read it, and I did read a little bit of it, but I couldn't really do the episode because I have to read a couple of his other books. Like, I mean, I have to read enough of his stuff to, like, actually be able to, like, commentate on, like, his philosophy and stuff. I could just also go on his Wikipedia page, but I wanted to do something a little different. You know, especially with the whole brain rot era of, you know, the internet. Maybe it'd be good to kind of, like, read some books, get some, like, mentality done. Like, at least read his big three: Common Sense, Agrarian Justice, and The Age of Reason. Especially considering that last one. I think I'm gonna find a lot of commonality between me and Thomas Paine. If you know, you know. But a lot of factors happen that made me decide to do this podcast instead. If you know the big news story that happened that I didn't cover in the thing, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Some files recently dropped, and, well, a lot of big things were revealed in those files, and, well, yeah, I don't know if this episode is going to be titled exactly I don't know exactly. I know that the title is going to give at least some of it away, but, like, this question, of course, is not being directed to the many liberals or leftists in my audience, or, you know, centrist or whatever ideology you are not. Like, I mean, this is purely directed to the conservative, or I guess maybe writer than that in my audience. I know you exist because a couple of you have made some comments, in the past, present, maybe future. And I did a poll literally, a day before I'm recording this. It showed like 128 people voted. And, even though left is obviously the supermajority of the people in my audience, there's at least 10% of you, which means at least 12 of you are right wing. And since these are like broad categories, I assume that this can range from like libertarian, like American libertarian, to like MAGA, to possibly, again, writer. I did make a video about third positions. I got a few commenters about like people basically saying a lot of like really, yikesy things. And I just want to do, and this is actually a attempt, a possible attempt to listen. A possible attempt. To the point where I might actually unblock some conservative accounts on this channel that have been bothering me. That were because if you don't know, there are rules. I put rules in my comment section now, but these were rules that I kind of had at least somewhat in my mind, and the rules are very simple. I guess I'll just read off the rules right now. It's a little thing where it's like, if you're here to have a genuine, productive, good faith conversation, comment away, but there are some guidelines. I put 3 guidelines, because YouTube only allows you to put 3 guidelines that, basically explain, some things that would probably get me to, not allow you to remain, commenting. Because, you can remove people from your comments. You can block them from commenting on your videos. I don't necessarily want to do it that much, but, I put guidelines. 1, if you're here to spread hate, ban on the spot. So, if you, spread some, transphobic shit or some anti-Semitic shit or whatever, if you're attacking people or attacking stuff like that, it's no, ban immediately. There was this one guy who was commenting on a couple of things, basically saying that women backing out of the driveways deserve to die. I'm I'm gonna remove you, but maybe maybe he's lucky, and I might allow him to come back to just say some words in the comments. Because again, this is me attempting to listen to you somewhat. And 2, if you're here to waste my time, I ban you once it becomes obvious. And again, that one's more of a vaguer rule, because I actually have to engage with you somewhat to understand. Because it's happened a couple of times where I've said, I said to one person, at one point, I was like, give me a explicit answer about this thing, and if you do not respond in this specific way, then you will be not allowed to comment anymore. And they did not answer in the way that, it was I forget the exact thing. It's I just asked a very simple question, and if you're not going to answer that question, then what's the point? Otherwise, feel free to critique, debate me, whatever. And I sometimes keep things up. There's one comment that literally calls me a terrorist, and I kept that comment up because it's funny. I think it's hilarious that literally it's I posted a video saying, hey, this comic book character is doing the exact same thing. A particular country in this world is literally doing something that a comic book villain did in the 90s that was perceived as an inhumane, obvious evil thing that no one should support, and yet we're supposed to support this country. Interesting. And then they got mad for me saying that. Interesting. But and again, the reason why I might contemplate allowing these people to go back to comment is because I want to ask you a very simple question. I just want to ask you guys a very simple question, and it'd be interesting to hear your responses. How does it feel? How does it feel knowing that the man who's been central to your life for around 10 years has been lying to you? How does it feel that he used your economic hardship to win you over, but instead works to give billionaires more handouts? How does it feel knowing that he used your patriotism for your country to sell us out to Israel? How does it feel that after telling you for a long time that he will put America first, he literally says, God bless Israel before God bless America? How does it feel that he literally gave millions to bail out the Argentinian economy while Americans continue to suffer? How does it feel that knowing that after posturing that he was going to be the peace president, he nearly took us to war with Iran and Venezuela? How does it feel knowing that even in the most minute sense, Trump hasn't even cut funding to the Ukraine war that you guys are so radicalized to oppose? How does it feel knowing that Donald Trump stole $324,650,000 from the troops that you support, that you believe fought for our freedoms? How does it feel knowing that the thing that has been prioritized when he got back into office was not any of the concerns that you all had, but preventing the release of the documents covering up one of the biggest scandals in US history that would expose so many fucked up people for insane crimes? How does it feel knowing that the reason why he won't release these files is because he is part of the scandal? The man you've supported is an active participant in this scandal. How does it feel knowing that you can't even do a gotcha to the liberals about, what about Bill Clinton? Because your guy literally said that he is sad that people are going after Bill Clinton. How does it feel knowing that after he said that, it basically admits right then and there why he didn't go after Hillary Clinton, despite the fact that one of his main campaign promises in 2016 was lock her up for the various obvious crimes that she did? How does it feel knowing that that was all theater? How does it feel that the most intrinsic constitutional right that you hold dear has been trampled by the guy you claim to love so much, literally saying that he wants a person who was exerting that legal constitutional right to be shot by the police for no reason other than exerting that right? How does it feel knowing that literally every word of the Bill of Rights has been trampled on by the man that you cared about so much? How does it feel knowing that the founders of the country that you claim to love so much would literally be marching to Washington right now for very obvious reasons? How does it feel knowing that the man you pray to stands antithetical to everything that you stand for in a political sense? How does it feel knowing that the anonymous forums that led to your radicalization were literally bankrolled by Jeffrey Epstein? How does it feel knowing that most, if not all, of your foreign policy beliefs were put in place by oligarchs in Israel and Russia? How does it feel that the sites that are doing the exact same things to you today are made by the modern day billionaires that went to the island? How does it feel knowing that you fell for the grift of the ruling class yet again? How does it feel knowing that your purpose is to be rage-baited by rich and powerful people to do their bidding? How does it feel to know that you put so much thought into your life about worrying where trans people urinate? How does it feel knowing that jailing 5-year-old immigrants is more of a priority than literally anything else to this administration? Except for, of course, the protecting the pedophile cabal. How does it feel knowing that you based your entire worldview on hating people? How does it feel giving up so much of your principles to this? How does it feel making all this your entire identity? How does it feel doing this and then pushing tons of people away from your life because of this, causing your circle of friends and family to shrink? How does it feel knowing that for a lot of people, this means that their only solace is a bunch of the same anonymous boards that were bankrolled by Jeffrey Epstein? How does it feel knowing that every single one of your friends who left because of this were absolutely right to do it? How does it feel knowing that you proved the liberals right? How does it feel being the bootlicker and nothing more? How does it feel that the don't tread on me flags you've waved your entire life were just an aesthetic and nothing more? How does it feel knowing that you were more inclined to bring up that phrase when you had to get a fucking booster shot and not when the government murders a woman backing out of her driveway in broad daylight? How does it feel knowing that the small government party is literally creating a surveillance state worse than anything we have ever seen prior, and possibly worse than the things that you have in countries that you hate? How does it feel that knowing this man and ideology have rotted your brain so much that you can't answer basic questions like who was the president on January 6th of 2021 and who was the president during the COVID pandemic? How does it feel knowing that you believe basically any random Facebook conspiracy slop and not any of the actual conspiracies that are going on right in front of you? How does it feel knowing that you'll never see your childhood weather ever again because climate change is on the path to kill us all, and the man who is currently in office that could do anything to prevent it doesn't believe that it's happening? How does it feel knowing that your entire movement is based on ignorance? How does it feel knowing that the symbol of your movement, the red hat, will be remembered for years in a negative light? How does it feel that after Trump's massive failure in regards to COVID policies, he's literally on track to repeat the exact same mistakes that led to the pandemic that killed 400,000 people? How does it feel knowing that it might get worse because he's pulling out of the WHO, which means that we might not be able to handle the next flu season with any actual accuracy? How does it feel knowing that after cries about draining the swamp has gotten more filled? How does it feel knowing that after crying for years about the possibility of, Hunter Biden was illegally enriching himself due to his presidency, Donald Trump and Jared Kushner do the exact same thing? How does it feel knowing that due to that fact and many other things before and after, you have absolutely no leg to stand on in regards to morality of any of your principles, because all of them have been ruined by your party and your ideologues? How does it feel knowing that none of them have any actual morality and backbone and are willing to sell it all out for Daddy Trump and or just flat out money? How does it feel knowing that familial or romantic connections won't stop them from exploiting each other, even to the point where one of them can die and then they'll just move on to exploiting them for gain? How does it feel that you literally proved the "I can shoot someone on 5th Avenue" comment right? How does it feel knowing that you sat idly by while the president murdered random people on the boat, and now those guns are being turned around to shoot us? How does it feel knowing that the longer you are in the game, you have less of an excuse to be able to not see any of this? How does it feel knowing that after being fear-mongered about China by him for years, every single action that he's done in regards to foreign policy in his second term have only emboldened China to become more powerful? How does it feel that literally every single thing that Trump does to quote-unquote get back at the countries that are hurting us are only going to hurt you? How does it feel knowing that the only celebrities that seem to rush to your side are the ones that are rapists, pedophiles, or overall just shitty people? How does it feel knowing that you literally have no hold on the culture of this country moving forward? How does it feel knowing that even after winning and controlling all 3 branches with an opposition that is so feckless that literally every single person who is on their side, allegedly, makes fun of them for being so pathetic, you guys still feel the need to whine and complain about not being a bigger in position than you are? How does it feel knowing that the only way your political ideology will survive past 2028 is through various illegal means? And how does it feel knowing that you will literally not get a single second of the time that you wasted on all this back? Now, all these questions are rhetorical, because I know exactly what you're going to do. You're going to take a look at every single one of those statements that I said and just not listen to it. You're going to go in one ear, going to go out the other. You're going to pretend that none of that happened, and you're going to pretend that you were vindicated in literally every single one of those beliefs. It's not true. All of us know it's not true. I guarantee you, even you know that's not true. But you can't admit it, because you're in too deep. You have to be right. This all must have been for something. This all must have been leading to a grand plan. All of this has to be he's testing me. Trump is testing me. God is testing me. My ideology is testing me. It's a test. It's gonna work out at the end. This all has to be for something. This can't be for nothing. Because if it was, the only other option you have is to admit that this section of your life was an absolute failure, however long it was. If you were a MAGA guy since day one, if you joined last week, you have to admit that however long you've been a MAGA, however long you've been a conservative, however long this path you've been on, you have to admit that it was for nothing. You'd have to admit that. And that can't be it. It can't be. Even if it's completely true, you're never going to admit it. Most humans don't function like this. Humans have this weird psychological aspect where they perceive attacking their mistakes as an attack on them. Especially something as deep as moral philosophies. Philosophy, politics, religion, that kind of stuff. Like something deep, intrinsic about your understanding of the world. How you believe the world should be. how you put that into practice, all that kind of stuff. You have to be like, no, I was right. I have to be right on this, because if I was wrong, then you have to admit that. Then this pillar of your life just gets torn down. You've internalized this so much that you can't fathom the possibility that you'd been led astray on this massive level. There's a chance you literally prayed about this. Like, maybe there was a moment where Trump did something, a MAGA Republican did something, and you prayed about it, and you came to a conclusion about it. Maybe you thought it was, again, you might have thought it was a test. You might have thought all these things. There's no way I could have been led astray even after praying on it. No, there's no way. There's no possibility of that, right? There are hundreds of thousands of millions of people who believe those exact same things about all the belief systems that you don't like. There are socialists that pray every night before they go to bed. But yeah, of course they're being led astray because they're not me. They're the wrong ones and I'm the right one. Humans have an innate ego. They do inevitably believe that they are ultimately right and everyone else is wrong. You have to at some point, because otherwise you basically just become a follower to someone else. That could also be what you did. But there are many others who went down this path and have broken free. And you'd think that seeing others make this realization might help. But it might actually make things worse. Richard Ojeda figured out that Trump was a con man and the MAGA movement was a con 2 years into Trump's first term. Joe Walsh figured it out by 2020. Thomas Massey figured it out by 2024. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene and the QAnon shaman figured out it was a grift in 2025. Again, you'd think all these people seeing the light would be you being like, you finally figuring out, like, yeah, so maybe there is a way for me to get out. But it actually might help you even more. You might feel more emboldened because if they left and you're still there, then what makes it like you might internalize it and be like, yeah, see, I'm better of a true believer than even these guys because I'm still here. If you've been a MAGA guy since day one, even if you jump off the train right now, you might still feel like, I've jumped off the train after the guy who was literally a fucking cult leader. That guy, the guy who dressed up in a fucking stupid costume and ran around spewing nonsense on the streets. I jumped off after him? So at this point, you might just go for broke. You're just in it now. There's no way for you to get out. But there's absolutely a way to get out. There's always been a way for you to get out. You might, again, because a lot of MAGA people, you guys make it your whole personality. You wear Trump hats everywhere you go. You get Trump merch. There's Trump stores that sell so much Trump merchandise. Not just stuff that he himself made, but like stuff that people on the ground make. That's like beyond another level. You might make it like literally your entire personality. Like, I mean, it cultivates in a circular cycle. You know, you make it your personality, but then when that part of your personality is just not part of your personality anymore, then like what happens now? We see it on a macro level when it comes to like political influencers, you know, basically being forced to being only the things that got them famous. Like, for example, Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin can never go back to being a liberal or progressive, even if he really figures it out. Like, even if he figures out, oh, all this stuff is just wrong. He can't do it now. He can't become it now. He made his whole grift about, like, you know, being like a influencer that left the left and became a conservative. He can't go back. Even if he admits all the things he said was wrong, he just cannot go back. But that's irrelevant, you know. They're like rich people who, yeah, of course they're gonna lie about whatever they believe in. But like, I assume you don't. I assume you don't have to. You have no incentive to like be a MAGA person. You have no incentive in any semblance of the word to be a MAGA or a conservative. There's no incentive for you. Like, and I'll freely admit, like, yeah, in the short term, it might be a little embarrassing for you to say you've been in the Trump gang for like this many years, and only now you're realizing you were played for a fool. You might sit there and think like, oh man, how could I have been so fucking stupid? And to be as blunt as I can, you just gotta suck it up. Just suck it up. Yeah. Like, just take it on the chin. Yeah, you were wrong. accept it, move on. Like, sometimes you need harshness to snap into reality. Yeah, in an honest sense. Like, sometimes you just need to be like, yep, I was wrong, and just move on. Like, that's just the thing. Don't, like, I mean, as much as, like, I mean, to put it in perspective for me, as much as I try to be, like, the smart guy who's trying to be, like, accurate and informational as I can in regards to, like, how I view the world and stuff, you know, online and off, I've been wrong on things before, and I'll continue to be wrong. I'm only human. That's just a fact of humanity. We'll always be wrong on something. I mean, I'll give some examples for me. I was foolish to think that Trump was the lesser evil back when he got elected in 2016. I wasn't a Trump supporter, but I was like, well, I mean, of these two, I mean, I would prefer Jill Stein, but I mean, if of these two, you know, Trump is going to be pretty bad, but I mean, at least he's not going to take us into war. And then, you know, sure enough, that turned out to not be a good idea. I was foolish to think that John Fetterman was going to be a Bernie-like populist. I was foolish to think that the Green Party was going to be a viable political structure to lead the movement moving forward. I was foolish to want Tulsi Gabbard to be Bernie Sanders' vice president. I was foolish enough to be a Jimmy Dore fan. I was foolish enough to be a Voshite. I was foolish to think Kamala Harris was going to win. And I made many statements in my videos that have been foolish in any small semblance. Do I let these things define me? No. I learn from my mistakes and move forward. I take it on the chin. I have a whole series on my channel dedicated to screw-ups I make in regards to how I do things I say or whatever that are like foolish, and it's like, yeah, I take it on the chin. But the thing is, in order to do that, the first step is admitting that a mistake was made. And the fact of the matter is, you have to admit that you made a mistake. Because if you don't admit it, then you're just flat out you're like an admission of you saying you have two roads in front of you. Truly, road A, you are a fool, and you have been fooled. You have been deceived. You've been tricked. You fell for a trap that just didn't fully live up to your expectations, and now you can move past it. Or the road of ignorance. The road of either flat out ignorance or flat out maliciousness. Because the only way you could truly accept any of the things that I've said in this video, the only way you could accept the Trump administration, conservatism, what the MAGA movement is, any of that stuff, the only way you could truly accept that now is truly to be a bad person. I mean this in the most objective sense. You are a bad person if you support Donald Trump from this moment forward. There's like, of course, roads of like, I think that, if you watch these channels, you'll know that I have believed that for a bit, but I'm just saying, especially now, like, I'm giving you guys an out right now. I'm literally saying this point, like, I'm giving you guys an out. I'm giving you guys an out to admit that you were fooled by Trump, that you don't support certain things that he's doing, and that you, I don't know, like, I guess either will, like, not actively participate in his movement going forward, or even maybe consider alternative movements to oppose him. Because if you just say, no, you won't, if you don't do that, then that means you support Jeffrey Epstein's best friend, you support a man who literally wants the government to create a surveillance state worse than anything China has ever done, worse than anything that we've ever done in the past, wants a government with the ability to just go around with masked men to randomly kill and kidnap people with no due process or rule of law, that has the ability to just remove people's citizenship without a second question, will turn his back on the most diehard supporters and immediately blame them and claim that they are like subversives trying to ruin society, that actively defends pedophiles, that actively stabs the working class and the little guy in the back in order to make room for his corporate-backed billionaires, who's an egomaniac narcissist that literally doesn't give a shit about the nation or even your fucking God at any semblance of the word. That's the only roads you have. So I ask this again. Conservatives, MAGA, right-wingers, how does it feel Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to notify when a future video comes out. And if you're more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon.